we're recording, even if I don't read it, I can talk about the different aspects of you that I've been seeing over the time, and how amazed I am that not only you speak to the power of diversity and inclusion, you also speak to the power of being female and being a leader. And why do we have to put down that it is a female or a male? You speak to the voice of inclusion with dyslexia and artificial intelligence and Web3. But now I'll go through the scripted. Giselle Mota is the principal consultant on the future of work. She brings simplicity, humanity, and innovative perspective to the sometimes abstract and complex world of the future of work. These areas range from Web3 technologies, including artificial intelligence, data analytics, and spatial computing, to topics such as diversity, equity, and inclusion, and many other trends of the ever-evolving world of work. As an industry leader, she assists executives and HR practitioners with innovative human capital management strategies amidst digital disruption. Giselle is a global speaker and has been featured on TED Talks, Forbes, Shutter News, and Chief Learning Officer magazine, to name a few. She serves across boards related to leadership in artificial intelligence, the future of work, and disability inclusion, and is active among startups and entrepreneurial spaces, all in hopes of creating an inclusive future of work and opportunities for all. Wow, wow, wow. This is amazing. Thank you ever so much, Giselle. And why are we having this? And the reason is innovation knows no borders. What if we can make a difference? What if we can maximize our impact in places that need it the most? In places where there is a lot of room for innovation and where communities are eager to build and collaborate. And that is why we invited the African Leadership University to join us. That is why we asked the Golden Key Society, Mount Royal University, we have Megan who is representing us today. She is a remarkable leader and doing lots of work, not only in the inclusive spaces, but several other areas. We have our Krisullians, and we have some, and my brother from another mother, Jeff Young, who's also joined us, Calgarians that I've recently connected with. So please, if you can unmute and quickly give a big round of applause to Giselle, and let us begin with the Paving Your Way in the Future of Work.
All of you.
Yay, thank you. So Giselle, I would love to find out, what is your favorite story of innovation and collaboration trumping across all borders and boundaries?
I think my favorite story, I'll share with you some of the things that I've been doing kind of as of lately in my organization, and some of the projects and that I've been doing as well on my own. But I will say innovation, this is all about thinking about where the world is going in the future. So where are we now and where are we heading in the future? So it's important to bring together minds and diverse perspectives, right? So cognitive diversity is very important as we continue to design for the future. It's the world in which we live in. It's how we continue to navigate our lives. It's the products that come as a result of that. So it's important to have different people at the table putting their input in it. So a quick example, at ADP, the company that I work with full time, so my day job, we were working together to try to come up with solutions to help organizations who are, think of, your enterprise, global, large organizations that may not be very diverse and inclusive, or maybe they don't know where they stand. We're trying to help them gain an understanding of where they are. So we tried to think, how can we do that? How can we help these organizations at a time when legislation from the Security Exchange Commission, and even we're hearing pressure from many different legislative bodies to really start telling organizations, hey, you need to start making sure that the people that work for your company are also feeling that they belong, that they're included, that their voices are heard, that they're represented, right? Not just the customers that you're trying to go after, but the people inside who work for you, right? So it's time to start respecting people for their differences, for their diversity, and start honoring that as well. So that legislation has come, thankfully. And it moved certain people to try to focus on that. So what we did at our company, myself and a bunch of other people who got together, we were all diverse, and we were thinking, how can we use data to show people where they are and the gaps that they have, and where they can improve. So we created this product called the Diversity Dashboard, and what it does is shows gaps from the time you hire somebody from the time that succession planning happens. Where are your diversity gaps? So in doing so, we were able to come up with a product with very diverse minds on it. So we're thinking about showing where are women paid inequitably, where are men paid inequitably, perhaps, right? Where are women, African American women, not being promoted to leadership positions? Or is it someone with a disability that is always getting looked over? So we're able to create a program or a platform to show organizations how they are faring, what are the gaps, exactly where are those gaps, and how to address them so that they can fix those things towards action. So that was, the best part of that story is not just that the product was created. The best part of the story to me is that we got a room full of people together for several months, and we were able to have different perspectives. We have people from different gender identities, people from different sexual orientations, races, ethnicities, people with disabilities, such as myself, who has an unseen disability of dyslexia. And we were able to all come together to think about something at such a pivotal time in our history, of global history, right? 2 years ago, with all the incidences that happened around George Floyd's murder and so many other things that were catalyzed because of that, and we're just really highlighted, and we're still seeing it today. We really need to start addressing these issues and addressing them at work. So I was so proud to be a part of a diverse group of people and minds who came together using data analytics, artificial intelligence, and those kind of technologies to help solve a real problem. And so that's kind of the story I'll share with you there.
That's amazing that, what we can do. And you speak to so many places that I really am interested in focusing. One is not only the gender equality, but also the equality with, people of, we talk, are you male, are you female? Stop it. Let's have all inclusion, bringing people to the table. That's a topic I'm going to be doing a keynote on, cultural humility. And when we open ourselves to asking questions and listening and doing that S&R, that pause, because so often, sometimes we jump to conclusions. So thank you for sharing that. Now, this has started in USA, and we have our population here from all over the world. We are focusing a lot on Nigeria to help with the startup of the Web3 as well, and giving that, as well, the African Leadership University, which is in East Africa, Mauritius, and Rwanda, something that's very close to my heart. So this is giving hope that, when it starts there, that pebble has been cast in the ocean. And with the ripple, we will see changes. It's just that we're wanting to see the changes so fast. But when we look at in the continuum of time, we need to make a start. So thank you for creating that ripple that's going to create waves across oceans and bring that together. So that brings me to, again, I was sharing like how awesome you are. Could you even be more awesome, Giselle? Tell me about the NFTY Collective and how it will ensure people of diverse representation that are included and able to access Web3 and the metaverse.
Yeah, let me ask the group also, just maybe by a show of hands, how many of you have heard, and you could use your hand icon on this reaction pane on your Zoom on the bottom here, but how many of you have heard about like Web3, the metaverse? Have you been hearing about that at all? Have you been seeing this? Let's see, if not, I'm about to define it. All right, Couple hands, 3 hands. Maybe people are still trying to find the icon. Great. All right. So the majority of the room. So I will share with you just in brief. This is not new. None of these technologies are new, right? So I will tell you the words and the verbiage is something that a lot of people are now waking up to for the most part. So I've been working for several years now because I love technology. So I've been working with like artificial intelligence, virtual reality, right? Where you can like you can put on your virtual reality goggles and you can enter into like an immersive world where all of a sudden, like, you know, you've probably heard it from Oculus and all kinds of things where normally people use it to play games. You can also enter into it to have a concert, or now people are using it for training at work. So you're not physically there, but you can immerse yourself in a digital virtual world through virtual reality, right? Then you use also augmented reality. Not new. Augmented reality is where you're able to basically take your phone or mobile device. Now you can also use it through what's called web AR, which is on your computer. And all that is really taking like a 3-dimensional figure, photo, image, whatever the asset is. And it'll feel like it's jumping out of your phone or mobile device through augmented reality. Now, when you put all these different things together, augmented reality, there's something called mixed reality as well, where you could be working on partly, for example, an example of mixed reality would be you have an augmented reality version of a keyboard where you're typing, right? But it's not physical. So you can actually begin now typing in augmented reality, and you have your physical monitor in front of you of your computer, and now you're doing something in mixed reality. So there's all kinds of different forms of how this is. Put all of this together, marry it together, right? And what do you get? You get this concept called the metaverse. And all that is, although it was coined by a popular company that changed its name, right? Now we're hearing that a lot and associating that. Metaverse has been around. It was actually coined from an author several years ago, from a science fiction author, and he came out with that word. But all it is being able to, for example, we are on the metaverse right now. We are on a virtual meeting. We are not having a physical meeting. This in itself is a metaverse. When you are using any type of app in augmented reality or virtual reality or all these kind of things, it's the metaverse. It's just, you're in a different plane of existence, if you would, right? So now Web3 is what people are saying is the next version of the internet. So we've had the first version of the internet where it was like, remember, I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember here, where you know, AOL, and like every time something was trying to happen on your computer connection, it was like, like that. That's the first version of our internet. When we moved over to Web 2, we started doing everything that we've known of internet today, where you can get on apps, where you can get on social media, where you can, somebody says they're older than that, man. So there's older versions, yes. Somebody's like, I had the first computer when it ever came out. All right, you won. Okay, so now Web 3 is more of, okay, remember you had a middle person to have to, let's say if you would go online and you would sell something on the marketplace, and you would have to, you had something that you were selling, you had a middle person, middle agent that would administer that sale, and then they would probably keep 10%, 30% of it, and then you'd go ahead and get the rest, right? Web3 is removing the middleman as much as possible of how we interact with the internet in all kinds of ways. So it's using blockchain. And blockchain is, you know, a whole nother concept in conversation, where basically it's keeping a ledger or a record of what your information is and who owned it and where that information went every step of the way. So your resume, for example, when you apply, a lot of companies are now starting to think about keeping your information like a resume and your skills and your experience on blockchain. So that way you can own it and take it with you wherever you go, and it will always point back to you, and someone can verify the truth that yes, this was the skills that you earned from the African Leadership University, or this is where you worked and it can be verified. So it removes a lot of the issue of mistrust. And it follows you wherever you go. So people are now thinking of using it for like electronic health records and all kinds of ways in which you can verify. So that brings me to the NFT part real quick. NFTs are called, it's a non-fungible token. And all that means in a really basic way, you've probably seen like people saying, oh, I'm buying an NFT, or I owned one, and it's like an ape or a monster looking thing, or it's, you know, some type of little avatar, and or whatever types of artwork. And it can be videos, it could be music, it's digital. Whatever digital asset you can have and you can make, you can then trade it, buy it, sell it as an NFT or a non-fungible token. Now, this is a whole thing that we would have to take like a whole hour to talk about in detail, but this is a world that is here today in which, you know, Generation Z today are coming up with, I mean, I've heard some people make millions of dollars just because they're creating these, you know, new assets and trading them and selling them and all kinds of things like that. There's a whole lot to that. I have created a collection where I looked at all these things, take a step back, and I looked at the NFTs, I looked at the space of Web3, I looked at the space of metaverse, and I said, you know what? The pace of technology should not keep people behind. It should not exclude certain groups of people. If you have, you know, if you come from a certain socioeconomic background, or you live in a certain part of the world, it's easier for you to gain access to certain technologies as they move forward. If you're able-bodied, it's easier for you to see yourself accessing and representing certain pieces of technology, right? And experiences. And I'll be more specific. If, you know, these NFTs that people have created, if you look at it, a lot of the collections, a lot of people who own them and have been selling them for ridiculous amounts of money, it has become in and of itself a reflection of the issues that we have in our society already. Even these spaces of virtual reality and metaverse, we're hearing women being groped in these virtual spaces because their avatar is being groped, or people are saying racial slanders to other people in these spaces, or only people of certain socioeconomic backgrounds are, you know, buying and selling and trading these virtual assets that are called NFTs. I want to put a stop to that as much as I can by making these technologies more inclusive. And so one of the ways in which I did that was I looked around and I saw, okay, if you enter into one of these virtual spaces like the metaverse, and you play a game or you go to a concert or you do something, your avatar right now, it could be anything. You could be a monster looking one. It could be a rap, you know, artist like Snoop Dogg in the United States. He has a group of avatars. You could take on that identity. But what if you were born with a condition called hypoplasia, which means that you have no arms and no legs, and you are in a wheelchair, and that's how you get around? When you go to these concerts in these virtual spaces, do you have to go in there and not have the choice, and you just have to have an avatar that has arms and legs? And, you know, I wanted to give people choice, especially people with disabilities. So I've created a series of avatars that look like people with different disabilities and look like people who have disabilities that you can't see as well. And there's a whole thing that goes behind that I've created. But essentially, this is out. I put it out into the world recently. We launched it. It's made up of a global group of figures who are disability inclusion leaders, authors, speakers, activists, and these real people. I've created the avatars of them so that they can take them on and they could see themselves in these virtual spaces. They are advocating for this, and we're going to keep pushing. My main goal is not the NFT project. The main goal is to get technology providers to change, to get technology providers to have more disability inclusion in what they're creating, to make more accessibility, to make it more affordable, to make it more representative of all types of people. So the collection has people of color, it has women, it has non-binary folks, it has people who are all on the LGBTQ plus spectrum, it has people with disabilities that you can see and you can't see. And so my goal is we're launching right now, and it's made up of real people. And then soon we will create these avatars so that anyone, including you all on the call here, if you had a disability yourself and you wanted to have one of those avatars, or if you wanted to embody one of those avatars for an experience, then we would create those as well. So coming soon, but that's the project. Really, it's not about the geekiness, it's about the heart of disability inclusion. And that's what I'm focused on right now.
That's brilliant. And you're giving hope. Say, where are so many of our participants coming in from all over the world?
Yeah.
And if they could access this can represent them in being a person who is not a person of color and all of that, right? And, coming from, I was born and raised in Kenya, East Africa. A lot has changed since I left, but I still know what goes on because it's people. We judge, and, that is going to be like, we judge because like safety, we're trying to figure those things out. But then it becomes warped. And
Yeah.
Jeff has put it on the comments, is that racism in the metaverse, like, it happens everywhere.
Yes.
We as focus in on people like Giselle, people like who are bringing, we have Duro Duluwa, we have Yemen, who are also in Nigeria, part of Krisullis. And what we're doing is we're helping people create their wallets and then go into creating NFT in the test mode, so it's not costing anything, and giving bounties to people. So everybody who is over here, we're very big on creating that safe space, on diversity and inclusion and education, and that is what Krisullis' mission is. So, Giselle, you spoke with so much fire, with so much passion. When was it that ember that lit that fire in you?
The ember is really getting clear on who I am and where I come from. And I think at the end of the day, we can spend our lives working for companies, building, amassing, trying to prove and reach and attain. But honestly, at the end, we need to go back to how you opened the call, which is centering and grounding ourselves in the reality of who we are and what we are in this world. A couple of years ago, when everything was happening, I took a very close look at myself and I said, how am I using my time? How am I using my skills? How am I using the gift that God gave me of life? And how am I using that to make a positive impact on the world, right? I am essentially, if you all look at what you're doing and we can all take a look, if we boil down what we're doing to the nuts and bolts, we're helping maybe other people make money. We're helping other people make a sale, or we're helping ourselves to attain and et cetera, maybe build some type of legacy for our family. That's great. But for me, and I don't know if there's anyone else out here like this, but for me, I want to make sure that I left some sort of positive imprint on this world as the space that I had here, right? My parentheses in life has to mean something. So if my skill set, my education, my qualifications have led me to a point of understanding the value of diversity, equity, inclusion, understanding that my love for technology and the power that that has to influence the world for good, and making sure that my voice is ensuring that it's used for good, because technology could be used for disastrous things. We've seen that. We're living in a world right now where we're under nuclear threat. Right? That is a reality, right? So we need more people to make sure that the direction of technology, the direction of science, the direction of decisions, anything is put in a right direction, whether you are, whatever your background is, right? Mine tends to be that I'm, in this technology space, right? And so I'm going to use that for good. And that's all that it's about, really, Alnoor. I want to make sure that whatever the passion that you're hearing from me and everything, it's coming from my heart, because I want to make sure that how I spend my time is meant for something positive. That's all.
You are beautiful inside and out. Thank you. I really appreciate that. So what should, so, it really brings me to another aspect of this, that there are there are true that these three concepts that define the future of work: data decentralization and automation
Mhm.
of that. And so bravo to you. Big data has been around for some time. It is often coined as the next management revolution. Now, the reason I ask about this is because we have so many who are either graduating soon from African Leadership University. We have alumni for job search. Job search is part of my passions as well, and helping people with that. How is it that they can speak to the people, the HR, and all of that on what we can do to be interested about people analytics? A course that you're going to be teaching in the universities.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah. So you're saying for everyone on the call, regardless of kind of your career and background, everything that we interact with leaves a trace of data, right? And so data is important. It's important to know how it's being used, how it's being governed, who has access to it. So we leave little digital footprints wherever we go. By the way, note to self, everybody here in the call, like when you're using an application or you're downloading something or you're doing anything, make sure you pay attention to kind of like the what you're signing up to and how you are giving them permission to use your data. Because sometimes it can be used in ways in which it might not align to you and your values at all. It's often sometimes used to discriminate against certain groups of people, or it can be sold. I'll give you a quick example. And I would tell everyone, if you haven't watched a documentary called Coded Bias is on Netflix. I would highly recommend you watch it and understand how is data used, how is facial recognition used, and all of that tracked. So the course that you're mentioning is that I'm going to be teaching a course in probably just about a couple of months. It should be launching, and you can go to my LinkedIn and find out more information and everything there. But or I saw that you posted it on Twitter recently too, so you can go to his Twitter account and be able to check to see there. But it's teaching people how to think about people analytics, like the analytics and data that we deal with in our companies, but make sure that it's done with ethics and inclusion in mind. So that's a course that I'll be teaching. I also speak a lot to people who are studying artificial intelligence and data analytics, who want to be like data scientists or do anything with AI and machine learning. And I teach them the same thing. I talk to them a lot about what do we need to think about when it comes to ethical implications, making sure that everything that we're doing, from when we look at the data to how we manage the data to then what we do with that data at the end, to make sure that it's inclusive of everybody and it's not discriminating and not creating bias. So yeah, so I would say to everybody on the call, data is definitely a part of our lives on a daily basis, whether we realize it or not, and it's part of your careers and workplace. So start maybe paying a little more attention to how that shows up at work. So if you're like in healthcare, for example, that's a field in which we are constantly intaking people's records. That's data. We are looking to see, their medical treatments. That's data. The billing that goes behind that, data. And so what happens with that data? How are we using it to create better systems for people? How are we using it to make sure some people are not marginalized and some people are not, further into like systemic issues? And that's just a quick example to answer your question.
That's lovely. Thank you. So what are some things that we can do to future-proof ourselves? Because
Yeah.
to the idea of skills, and I love what you said. I've been doing a lot of research in March and April around education NFTs. And I'd even be speaking to one young Brazilian who talked about, he started university in Australia. It was not where he's from. So not only that cost, but the cost of, when he started that university and he's come out of it with a degree that is now irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
I posted a poll on LinkedIn, is that, how many of you are working in the field of the study of your choice? How many of you wish that you could be doing a 6-month intensive course in gathering the skills that are required for the job, and then learning more about education NFTs, where you can then say, yes, I do have those skills and the transparency of that. So where am I going with that? Is that how can our future leaders, those that are in career transition, look at how they can sustain themselves in the future of work, and what kind of skills they should be looking for?
Great question. You know what? Those who are on the call, could you write in the chat what is your like area of study, or what is your industry that you're in? If you could go ahead and write that for me. What are you like studying? If you could go ahead and put it in the chat for me, you could type that out. I'm curious. I started out in academics. That was my career. So I went to school for business. I graduated with a degree in marketing and management. And then I went into the world of academics. I started teaching. I still teach till this day. And all right, I'm seeing social sciences, law, criminology, nice, web app, biology, coaching. Okay, so there's a great variety, training and organizational development of backgrounds here represented. All right, so I will say to everyone, no matter what your field is, technology is always going to be, and innovation is always going to be a part of what we're doing. So even in me teaching, when I used to teach at the very beginning, it was like in person, and I was doing a little bit of kind of like online things. Now I'm able to, talk to students, and we're talking through simulations, and we're using certain things in, like I mentioned about, augmented reality. Now I'm talking to them, like I told you about in this next course that I'll be teaching, is about people analytics and inclusion and all that. So my best advice to you is, no matter what your degree was and what your course of study is or was, make sure that you just always keep your ears out on innovation and as it applies to your specific industry. So for example, let's see, graphic design. The person is doing a graphic design. So what graphic design was before, today people are learning. I would push myself, if I were you, to learn 3D design if you're not already doing it, because that is the next level of where all these spatial computing that I talked about, whether it's NFTs, metaverse, all these things, is starting to get through there. So even self-teaching yourself that, starting to learn from other people through free resources that exist out there. YouTube is free, and there are so many very cool tutorials and videos of people who did it. In the field of, let's see, accounting services manager. So even accounting today, like I talked about before, if you don't know about blockchain, start learning a little bit more about it, because ledgers are changing from being, those general traditional ledgers to now more things on blockchain, understanding more about digital payments and how the future of money continues to change. In Asian countries, they're using WeChat to be able to transact. In most cases, cash is not king anymore. And so how that's changing, you're looking at companies like Visa, who are also now, and PayPal and all these others, who are creating opportunities for exchange on cryptocurrencies. And so that's another, area of study. So my example then to you is just everyone, teachers here, coaches, everyone here, start embracing more of the virtual experiences as well. So if you learn about, how do I present myself, everything as basic as, how do I present myself on a virtual setting? How do I engage with my students when we're not in person? If another pandemic happens or something else were to happen, unfortunately, like, we wouldn't pause and not know what to do, but we would be able to still reach out to our students, be able to teach them something meaningful, reach out to our clients in coaching and consulting, and still make it meaningful. So I would say, always learn, what are the tools, what's the technology, what's the innovation that can help you do your job better, and that can help you stand out more, and always be relevant. And so that's the tips that I would give everyone, regardless of what you studied in school.
Amazing, amazing. So, we talked, you fit right into the next question, and you talked about future-proofing ourselves and taking these skills. And we know in so many industries, we're even looking at food. Who would have thought that we could do food. And that is another area that's emerging.
Yes.
Talk about WeChat. And I used to live in China, actually. I could not with WeChat because I'm not a Chinese citizen. I need to have their bank over there or things like that. I've lived in China and I have family there. So even when you were passing those red envelopes, they would like gladly collect them and, you know, you get some kind of like a reward, which is monetary. And I'm like, well, at least I got the envelope and I passed it forward. And that is the beauty of Krisullis as well, with the space that we are. From caterpillar emerging into a butterfly and moving forward as, you know, forward. And so that is the reason why we provide sessions like this, that, you know what, there are resources, there are subject matter experts who are remarkable in this. That is you, Giselle. So that is just amazing. My next question is, how can we ensure a fair and ethical and an inclusive future work for a generation and generations to come?
Yeah. I'll go back to even some of the careers that I'm seeing here that I didn't mention. So someone who said that they want to be, or they are an empowerment coach. Somebody else was talking about psychology, and some other ones that I'm seeing here that are more like coaching, etc., human resources. So there is something that will never be innovated all the way. There's something that will never be replaced by automation and etc. And what that is our human, what makes us very human, right? And so there are also skills that I would tell everybody to continue to amplify, to make sure that we can make sure that we're always designing with diversity, equity, and inclusion in mind. You have to, no matter how geeky and technical your role gets or how advanced things can be, continue to think about what drives humanity. Think about empathy, think about connectivity, communication, think about all of that, and let that drive what you're doing. So to all the people that I mentioned that those were your careers, I would encourage you as well. It's not all about finding the next big thing, you know, the innovation and the technology. Remember, in today's world, for example, what does it mean to be a psychologist today? What does it mean in a world where mental health is an issue of utmost importance, where this generation that I mentioned before, Generation Z, grew up with technology in their hands. They don't quite know anything different. And they also grew up in a generation, in a world where racism and discrimination and threats of global wars, and we're hearing all the time about mass shootings and all kinds of things, you know, the refugee crisis, you know, the environment, like this is a lot of pressure on people. We lived through a global pandemic. So how then do you also show up as your best self in that career to be able to help humanity, right? To be able to help people in the best way. So that's what I would share with everyone as well, is in order to think about, you know, inclusive futures and everything, we just need to be more human. We just need to take a step back, you know, don't always put profit over everything. Just take a moment and think about, how can I bring my best and my best good into my profession, into what is in my hands, that I can interact with people. Because that's all you're doing, really. You're interacting with people through a trade that you decided to pursue, whether that's psychology, whether that's through accounting, whether somehow you are impacting the world one way or another. So keep a lens, right? I would encourage everyone here, put on some lenses of everything I do. I need to think about diversity. I need to think about, how are people included here? How do I make sure people belong? And how do I make sure that experiences are equitable in what I'm doing? So it's just, it's a perspective that we all need to embody.
You know, these are just amazing, amazing, amazing thoughts. And, you know, what you've shared over here, we already have a question over here.
Sure.
I'm, you know, being mindful of the time as well. Get to the Oculus Quest 2 headset or any VR headset, a perfect starting point to get into the metaverse as an innovator? That's a great question, Caleb.
Thank you for the question. Yes, I would say no, it's not. And, you know, in fact, I sit on boards I'm talking to a collective of people who are trying to make sure that they innovate what VR goggles and glasses and headsets are and have been. One, they're way too expensive for the masses. Two, they actually, when we're talking about data, they track certain data pieces that can tell a lot about an individual. So for example, you can have goggles, these headsets on, and it can track your eye motion when you get sad, when you get aroused, when you get angry, and it's understanding that and tracking that. Where's that data going, and what are people doing with that? So more governance and ethics are being brought into that space. I mentioned that they're expensive, and also some people get motion sickness wearing those. Some people cannot wear them for a long time. They might have some type of physical condition that doesn't allow it, or some people don't even have the physical ability to be able to put them on, or some people are visually impaired and can't even enjoy that. So for all of those camps, I would say that it is an area in which, and yes, Steve, augmented reality is what's trumping right now virtual reality. Augmented reality is way more accessible. So if you want to, innovate and get into things, I'd say you could dabble into it, but VR is not the way. I would just say start seeing a specific area in which you're interested in innovation and start to understand kind of what's next and new in that. Is it AI? Is it data? Is it, spatial computing, which is all things AR, VR, et cetera? Like find a path and then start following, like, if you want to innovate and you want to kind of get into it, start in one area.
Wow. Spatial computing, did you say that?
Spatial computing is all things, 3D, and we're talking about augmented reality, virtual reality, extended reality. So yes, that's the field of all of those things.
That's wonderful. Just going to put it down in the notes over here. What I'd like to do right now is that we are at 9:47, 47 minutes into this. I would like to open the floor for, maybe another 5 minutes or so of questions before we close. And before even we do that, I would love to acknowledge all of you who are here wanting to learn and make this a better world. And I think that is also where, getting to know Giselle from the one Zoom call I had, but watching her online and watching her posts, is that she's my kind of people. And she graciously said that she was giving her time for this. So massive thanks. I love you, Giselle. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And you know what, like some people may think, oh my God, he's creepy, but I'm saying that with, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and that's just who I am. So please, I would love, let's open the floor for some questions here. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Really appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
Yes, you can ask about literally anything, so feel free. It could be a most random question. I would love to hear from you. I think Caleb has their hand up. And
yes, go ahead, Caleb.
Hi, thank you so much for the information. And I just have one question, right? I hear everybody saying that the metaverse is going to be the future of the internet and how Bitcoin is going to change everything, but I really don't understand it because to me, the internet looks just perfect right now. So why do people say that? And how can I get into this future of the internet?
The metaverse and all of that is not really going to become the main future, in my opinion. I think that there's a long way to go for that to happen. Just like today, there are certain parts of the world that still don't have internet access. There are still, even during the pandemic, certain people didn't have access to internet because of places that they live that couldn't receive it. So certain schools and certain people weren't performing well. So I don't think that that's going to happen. What you're probably hearing are people who have a brand and money and stake behind it, and they're really they're following hype. So a way to start, understanding this is really just start doing some research. I would encourage you, look at like YouTube, Google search, like what is the metaverse? What is Web3? And start understanding a little bit about what that is. Don't get sucked up by the hype, because especially big organizations who are putting money into this because they see it as an opportunity for people who are excited about something and they want to make money off of it. In a lot of cases are gonna, make it bigger than what it is right now. But it is here. It will continue to evolve, but I don't think it's going to replace how we interact, right?
That's brilliant. Caleb, I'd like to invite you to connect with Yaman, and he can help you at least set up parts of it, and you can watch some of the videos that we've already got on the research behind this, so that can help you out. That was a brilliant question. What other questions do we have?
We have B has their hand up, and
yeah, please go ahead. Bitsy,
they're on mute.
I can't pronounce the name, sorry. Do you have a question?
The last name Demisi or Demisi, something like that. If you would,
Yes.
You seem like you have your hand up, but you'd have to put yourself off of mute. And so does the Krisullis.
Okay, that's Yaman, who is, oh, there. Oh, okay. Yaman, go ahead, please.
Off mute.
You're on mute.
In the meantime, anybody else has a question, you can raise your hand, or you could even put it in the chat.
Okay, no worries, perfect. Yaman, do you have a question, or anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question. Is it
Yes.
okay if I?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm just interested to know your guys's perspective on this, and how you guys would approach this type of thing. Disclosing a disability in one's place of work. How can this be done without, fear of, being potentially let go from a job, or it affecting how others treat people at work, right? How can this be done successfully if we're going to be all an inclusive society, to not feel afraid to disclose who we are,
Yeah.
and what we might need in a setting of work?
Great question. In today's world, a lot of organizations are being held to a higher standard. So there are bodies and groups of people who, from the Equal Employment Opportunity Committees to whatever exists by certain countries, there's protections for people with disabilities for the most part. So I would say if anyone were to disclose their disability, they have the backing of legal bodies to say, if anything is done against me, if I feel like I get discriminated against because I did share that, then I have a legal recourse to be able to go to. That's one. Secondly, I would say when someone does disclose, they should think first, like, why am I disclosing this? Is it that I'm requesting an accommodation of any sort? Is it because I want to let someone know that I'm going to work and think and communicate differently, so thus work with me? Like, I'll give you a quick example. I worked with someone in the past who had Asperger's, and they came across as very straight to the point, a little bit blunt, a little bit sometimes could be perceived as rude to certain people. And it was difficult, people found, to work with that individual when they started to say, well, the reason why I come across the way that I come across, because they're brilliant. And they said, the way that I come across is because I'm neurodivergent. I have Asperger's, and I communicate and socialize differently. So if you would, this is how you can work with me. Here are some resources, and here are some things, manager, this is how you can work with me. I'd say, make sure to go to a manager. Disclose if you feel like it's going to help you be better at work. If you feel personally that you just want to disclose because you want to let people know that that's who you are. And also if you need an accommodation. And remember that if you do it and someone comes back with anything that seems negative, you can take that directly to human resources. You could take it up into the company, and even outside of the company, you could take it to these bodies and globally that protect people with disabilities.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for that. What if it's like for scheduling accommodations? Because,
Yes.
you know, my disability, it's not about, you know, how I speak and that. It's more about what I need for scheduling so I can be my optimal best. And this is where you know, if I would need to disclose, that's what it would be around. It would be around that. But often workplaces take approach, well, you just take what we give you and that's it. And then that's not really accommodating people with disabilities who might need something like, for example, a later shift because they might suffer migraines, you know, due to other conditions they have, right? So that, how do we talk about that stuff without being, you know, discriminated or held against? Well, that's just the way it is, you know, take it or leave it, or you go, right, kind of thing. There's that fear, right?
We always run the risk of, you know, when we show up as our true selves and ask for what we want, we don't know what an individual is going to do or how they're going to act. So you run the risk, right, of showing. However, here's some, you know, quick thing is talk about it to your manager, but also talk to it to human resources. To go to them, and everyone has the right to be able to request accommodations. So go to them and ask them about, hey, this is my need. This is what it is that I need and what I'm looking for. And know that you're not asking for, like, you know, 6 days off of the week to work 1 week and that's your schedule, but like that you're being, you know, you're being reasonable with what your accommodation request is. Take it through HR, take it through your manager. And then also I put in disability in on the chat. You could go there. It's an awesome website where it has some resources and it will give you some tools on how to do all of that as well. You'll also find organizations and jobs that are posted there that are happy to accommodate and bring people in because they're committed to that in case you might be looking.
That's amazing.
Okay.
And Rima, there are lots of resources here in Calgary. With my HR background, I was talking about that. And to disclose or not to disclose is what I've done a blog post on, and I can share that with you, Rima.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I've never met her, but she connected with me on LinkedIn saying that she loves chai. Mom makes the best chai, and so that was amazing. We are at time. I would like to say a huge, give my hugest gratitude to Giselle for this really informative session. On the future work, artificial intelligence, he gave us so much more. Not only did I learn, but I'm sure that, you know, many of us were joining us from all over the world had that same distinct pleasure. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us today. This has been incredible. I will be posting the link to the recording, and my apologies to, you know, people who might have been waiting on LinkedIn Live, that I had some technology issues right here. Thank you again.
Thank you all for having me.
I love you.
Thank you.
Bye. Welcome. Hey, Giselle is gone. Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Okay, bye.